Hi everyone, this is Debbie Henderson from Debbie's Designs. Welcome to my weekly tea time and a card. I'm just going to hold off for a second. It looks like I might be having internet connection problems. Okay, I can see you guys coming on. There we go. I didn't think I was going on live because it was just kind of turning and turning. So here I am and I can see you guys. Welcome. So just a brief announcement. The month of July, we're doing the earn a $5 coupon for every $50 that you place. So thanks to everyone that's placed orders from me. You should be getting your coupons right through your email, and then in August, you get to redeem them. I am using Magnolia Mood this week I'm doing a technique with you guys, and I'm going to show you the card in a second. I'm using this big flower image. Look how pretty that is. And then with Deepest Symphony is the sentiment I'm using. I am actually doing an old technique, but let me move this because it's glaring. It's an old technique, but I'm actually doing it with watercolors. It's the Joseph's coat technique. This is what my card looks like. You can see that I have some white embossing, and I'm going to show you how to make this card. So let me go ahead and give you all of the products I'm using. I've got Azure Afternoon 11 by 4¼ scored at 5.5. So let me go ahead and fold that. And then I have Lemon Lime Twist 5¼ by 4. Don't those two colors look pretty together? I have another Azure Afternoon for the sentiment. I'm going to cut out with the punch, which is the Labeled with Love punch. And then I have a piece of watercolor paper. I'm actually going to cut this down, but let me show you what I start out with. It's actually half of one of our Fluid 100 sheets. So it's 5.5 by 4¼ I also have under this layer, you can see that it's raised. Because it's watercolor paper, sometimes it gets warped a little bit. So I'm using our foam adhesive sheets. These come in a package of 6. And you guys have heard me. I call these my super jumbo stamping dimensionals. But I've gone ahead and cut a piece that will fit behind this layer. And I cut it to 4 5/8 by 3 3/8, just a little smaller than the layer so it won't peek through. For inks, I have Versamark, Night of Navy, Pool Party, Azure Afternoon, and Lemon Lime Twist. I also have some white embossing powder, so I am going to use my heat tool. And the sentiment actually comes from something fancy. I decided to use a different sentiment that came with the other stamp set. And lastly, I have some bling, adhesive back shiny sequins. Let me bring those up so you can see how pretty these are. They do shine. I've been using these a lot. Okay, so I'm going to move everything. What I'm going to do is, this takes time to dry. I will use my heat tool, so I will be making a little bit of noise. In order for the embossing powder not to stick to everything, we have to make sure everything is completely dry. So I'm going to start out with paper towel. I have one of my water painters. To make it easy so I don't have to keep squishing this to get water, I'm just using a lid from our old embellishments. I'm going to add some water right in the lid. It's just easier because I am going to use a lot of water. And I'm going to squeeze. For those of you that have never watercolored with our ink pads, what you do is you apply pressure right in the middle, squeeze, and then when you open the lid, you have this to work with. So there's the Pool Party, Azure Afternoon, and then Lemon Lime Twist. So I've gone ahead and did, oh, whoops, I just spilled some water. That's okay, I'm gonna get it wet anyway, but I'm gonna need more. Whoops, hold on. I didn't unscrew the whole thing. You guys, I haven't been live for like 3 weeks, so I am a little rusty. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just wet this quite a bit. For those of you guys that like techniques, you'll like this one. So I'm adding a lot of water. And then I'm just gonna take some color and swish it on there. Add more water if needed. You don't have to be careful where you put the color. I'm just kind of adding it everywhere. Now I'm gonna add the pool party. And what I'm actually doing is just filling up this whole background with color. I'll bring the card back in once I do this. I don't want to end up messing anything up on my card. Okay, now we're going to do Asia Afternoon. So you can see I'm just filling in all of those white spots with 3 colors. You can use 2 colors. You can use 4 or 5. It's up to you. I want these to flow, so I'm going to add more water. Okay, now let me get rid of all of these ink pads. I don't need these again. And the water. And you guys, you're so used to seeing me speed along. Well, tonight is one of, it's a slower card. Let me just use this. So I am going to spend a little bit more time with you. Now, let me go ahead and dry this. And one tip I always tell you to use is go with a larger piece of cardstock or watercolor paper, because if something happens on the ends that you don't like, you can always cut away. I'm just going to dry this. It's pretty wet. I usually do front and back. You can see that it's going to curl, but it will go flat once it's on the drier side. Let me bring the card back in so you can see that as well. So you can see it's starting to flatten out. You have to make sure this is really, really dry, because once you put the embossing powder down, it might stick to any wet areas. I'm going to flip it over one more time. Okay, that's pretty flat, which tells me it's usually pretty dry. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and place this right here. I'm going to get my other layers ready, and that'll give it more time to dry. So this was the Asia Afternoon card base that I folded in half. I'm going to go ahead and glue the lemon lime twist layer. So you guys, I've been doing the farmers market all summer, so that's why I've been so busy. I'm a painter, and I've been doing paint kits for beginners and for kids, and I have been extremely busy with those. Night of Navy ink for the sentiment. And I'm going to go ahead and use the Labeled with Love punch. Okay, there's that layer. And now I'm going to go ahead. Okay, I'm still going to need the Night of Navy, but I need to add ink in the center because I'm going to paint with it. So I'm going to get that ready. I'm hoping that this is dry enough, but I am going to run my embossing buddy over just to make sure. This will dry it even more. This is just powder that comes out. Okay, now let me get a piece of scrap paper. because I am going to go off the edges. I'm going to bring in this large flower stamp. I'm going to get my embossing powder ready. And because this is such a large stamp, I'm going to have it facing up. And I'm going to ink it this way by pouncing on it. You are going to be stamping on watercolor paper, which has a texture to it. So make sure the stamp is very well inked. And I'm actually just going to hold it there just for a second to make sure the paper absorbs it. And as I do each one, I'm going to add the powder. Okay, so you can see that I added my white powder. I just did 3 images on this one because I want to have some space in between for that coloring. So now I'm going to go ahead and do my second image. And I always make sure that I turn the images so they're not facing in the same direction. Again, this is watercolor paper with texture. So I just sit on it for a little bit. That's image number 2. Okay, there's 2. I'm going to do one more. And I'm going to put that in the opposite corner. Let me see. I'm going to turn it this way. We're going to do the 3rd flower. And it's good to do this technique with an open image, but also a little bit of boldness to it. Okay, there's my 3 flowers. Let me go ahead and move everything over. Now I'm going to heat emboss again. This time we're going to melt the white powder. You'll see how bright it gets when I do this. Okay, you can see the difference of the melted powder versus the dry powder. It turns a really, really bright white. And I usually hold it up to the light to make sure that I melted all the powder. I've got 2 more flowers to go. This is what takes the longest, is melting the powder. Okay, one more. Once your heat tool is heated up quite a bit, it does go a little bit faster. I'm almost done. Okay, let me just hold that up. I want to make sure I got it all, which I did. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and get my water out again. And I'm actually going to add some into my cover here. Make this really watery. And this is where I'm going to add color to the background. Now, for some of you, you might find this a little difficult with the aqua painter. If you do, you can use a paintbrush. I'm just going to bring this up close so you can see. I'm going around all the embossing. So that's why I'm spending a little bit more time with you today, because I have to go around all of these flowers and leaves. And then I'm going to cut down my cardstock to the size that I need, which is actually 4 3/4 by 3.5. But you can see how, as you're adding darker color, the other colors really pop through those flower images. Okay, these larger spaces will go quicker. You just have to be careful going around the embossing. And of course, the embossing is going to resist the ink, so you don't have to worry too much if you get some on the embossing, because I'm actually going to wipe with a tissue once I'm done. Now the Joseph's coat is usually done, how I learned it was by sponging the color on. And I thought I would try it with watercolor paper, and I really like the way it looks. I am using one of the bigger water painters. There is this one with a smaller tip. And don't worry if the ink is lighter or darker in some areas. You'll see here that it just adds the watercolor look to it. I'm just getting more ink and more water. I find this so relaxing to do. And you can always go back later and add more ink if you feel that it should be darker in some other areas. I haven't shown a technique for a long time, so I thought I would work on techniques. I might do another one next time. I've been doing a lot of card folds, and I thought I would mix it up a little. Okay, wait a minute. Oh, I just went in the flower there just a tad bit. But you know what? If you make a little error like I just did because I'm talking too much, remember that you have a punch shape that goes on the card front. So I would just position the card or this layer on my card so that I can cover it with my punch shape. Okay, I'm almost done. But see how that's drying nicely here? It's got different lights and darks, and it just looks good. And then I'll just give it a once over when I'm done to see if I need to add darker colors or another layer of the blue, of the Night of Navy. I'll try to blend this one in a little. You don't want to play with the watercolor too much too, because it will start getting like little fibers that will loosen up some. Okay, I'm going to leave that alone. So now you can see how that the color pops through the flowers now that I've added the Night of Navy. I'm going to dry this one more time because I'm actually going to cut it. And it's best to do the background like this with a dark color. You could use browns, blacks, dark grays. Okay, so now I'm going to bring my paper trimmer in, and I'm going to cut this. I'm going to put the measurement right here so you guys will see it. 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. So that would be right. I'm going to cut a little bit off each end. So 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. So you can see, whoops, let me move this. Some of you guys are probably cringing right now. So you can see how warped this is, and that's where my big jumbo Stampin' Dimensional comes in, our adhesive sheets. I just love the way this will flatten my sheet out. Look at that. It's nice and flat already. So all I'm going to do now is peel this off. And let me see. I'm going to put my, okay, this was where the boo-boo is. I'm going to put it down here. I just got a little too much blue right there on the flower petal. Okay, nice and flat. And then I'm going to add dimensionals to my sentiment. And I'm actually going to put it more to the left just to cover that little piece of ink that is in the wrong spot. I always tell my local girls there's always a way to fix a boo-boo. See, you can't even tell I did that. And now I'm going to bring in my sequins. I'm using the lemon lime twist color. Let me see, I'm going to put one here. My flowers are positioned just a little different. Put one right in the center. And there is my card for today. So for those of you that missed it, I used the Magnolia Mood stamp set along with the Labeled with Love punch to create both of these Joseph's Coat watercolor technique. So I hope you enjoyed my card. I will pick a name tomorrow from my Facebook group for everyone that comments. And I'm hoping to be with you again next week now that I'm caught up. Have a good week, everyone. Stay cool. It's been very hot here in Maine. Stay cool, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.